Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Conquer the Clutter for September the 10th. Do you believe it? Um, anyway, we were all just talking a moment ago about how wonderful the weather is, and how we don't have the variation of, is this um, so hot, so muggy, so whatever. So everybody's just a whole lot happier with the consistency of just cooler weather coming regardless of what it means in the long run. That doesn't last forever either. So I have a question for people. How many people did last week's homework? All right. That homework being that when anxiety presents itself, you made a deliberate, conscious effort to stay as calm as possible. Deep breath. This is not disaster looming. This is not what I want. But there is no need to let it get a hold of me. All right. And when you made that decision, I see thumbs up. Wonderful. When you made that conscious decision, you may have had to fight for it a bit. All right. How many people were able to just sit with it? Just let it be, all right? In whatever form that anxiety came, you just let it be, almost like a child having a tantrum, right? You just let it wind down, all right, and ride the wave, okay? Now, that wave sometimes can be cognitive, mental anxiety, burring, in your head. It can be in your body as well, your breathing, um, your anxiety response can cause flutters, right? Sometimes it can also, if it's really being a nuisance, it can trigger some form of pain that you have in your system anyway. Um, but if you, even when things are very painful, I remember this when I blew the disc at the back of at the base of my spine many years ago. I blew it, and who knew the vertebrae had popped out of alignment and was sitting on the spinal cord. And I was at work, and I thought, I don't want to handle this here. I want to get home. And so I just went to my boss. I was working with the city of Ottawa at that point in a special program. And I said, not feeling my best. I'm heading home. And I made myself, this is not wise, all right, but I made myself get in the car, very slowly drive myself home. And the pain was excruciating. And while the decision under that pressure was not a good one, I would have been far better to call an ambulance at that point. It did teach me as I was setting this, reminded me and thought, it is possible. Now, clearly, if the pain is something that could be that serious, I didn't know that at the time. All right. Um, that disc had given me wonky sort of, we did not have a loving relationship, that disc and I, under the best of circumstances for a very long time. So I just thought it was being particularly annoying. um, Ask for the help you need if you really feel you can't cover it, but even if it does trigger pain, sit with the pain and just let it ebb. All right. Listen and record what that pain is in case you need to translate that for your physician. But don't panic. Once you panic, you're in a different loop. All right. So you either reach for the phone or you reach for resources and help. All right. Now, and did you in doing this homework, if you did, and you were able to just ride the wave, sit with it, watch it ebb, because it doesn't last forever. Did you realize that at the same time, that negative experience, and it is one, there's no refuting that, right in front of you or within your scope at the very same time, you were able to notice that there were also positives? What form did those positives take? All right. Sometimes the positive can be, what do I know? Like happened last week with the bubble handout. What do I know? How do I get there? If that doesn't do it, what else is available to me? Either is more expertise available to me? Do I know somebody? Do I have something? What am I not telling myself as I'm distracted by this anxiety? And often it's about what you know in part. It's about trying it and seeing how well, even a little bit, run it through your mind, a dry run. All right. Would that work? Your confidence level, and would it work to handle whatever it is that's griping at you in the form of anxiety? Who do I know who knows more about this? So that I don't have to be like dragged along behind the bus, as it were, for a repeat. So just knowing that there are positives. Sometimes it's like the sunrise that I told you about on one of the worst days of my life, and it just distracted me and filled me. What were some of the positives that you might have when you didn't go to the mat with the anxiety? You stayed upright enough. What were some of the positives that you noticed were right there for for want of a better word, enjoying or using? Put them in the chat, okay? So that um, I can track those. Okay. How long did it take you, and what generated your distraction from the anxiety to being even slightly aware of the positives? What was that that cued you? How many people here, when they noticed that there was at least one positive that they could decipher, how many people realized what it did to your energy? I'm not talking about your active energy, like you got up and suddenly did something that you've never done before. I'm talking about just the energy within you, that you weren't as discouraged, you weren't as afraid, you weren't as threatened, you weren't, maybe it just was like stepping back out of the rain. You got a little bit of a reprieve. What was it that helped you realize that actually by riding the wave, you got back to a more positive energy? What was it? Or what were some of those positives that the next time this happened, and that's the rule of the world, all right, sooner or later, now you know to look for. Now you know it's out there and that it has that effect on you. Just puts you in a slightly more positive place. And let's not lie, when we do that, did anybody have that positive experience? We're not talking overwhelming, maybe just a tiny bit. Did anybody have that happen and not be aware that it gave them some relief? And let's face it, relief in a storm, all right, is a good thing. It's a positive thing. And along with relief, I want you to realize relief equals reassurance. because that should teach you that no matter what that anxiety producing situation was, there are positives. They may vary. You have to look up, not waste your energy fighting or stepping into the anxiety. Just a little bit of relief. Okay, I feel better. Reassurance. The reassurance, people, has your name on it. You can handle this. Perfectly, not at first, but increasingly as you get better and better at doing this, you won't hide from the anxiety. Don't hide from the anxiety. All right. But know that it doesn't have to win. Whatever is prompting it, you can find that out by consulting your doctor if it happens to be a pattern. All right. They can explain how, in your particular case, with your particular health status, that might be triggered or avoidable. But the reassurance is that there are answers, that it doesn't have to be something you dread or fear. You are able to manage it. Who here, when they did the homework, not perfectly, but good enough, all right, experienced almost the feeling of escape is too big a word, but like you dodged a bullet, like it was like, whoa, that's happened before. And I was like dragged along with it. And you know what? Didn't handle it perfectly. I want to practice this more because it does actually work. You are in charge. You don't need outside forces to do this part of it. I promise you that. And that is your own little escape mechanism. Not fully, but enough that you can stay upright. You can stay in the game. You can stay moving forward, maybe more slowly and cautiously, because you're escaping the power of a negative pressure. And this is not the last time it's going to happen for any of us. All right. That's life. The mix of the good, the bad, and the neutral. That's life. Okay. The reason I'm asking you all these questions is I'm hoping that by taking you through the steps that you followed or that you generated for yourself, it reminds you that no matter what we think or we do, all right, no matter what the skills and strategies are that we get better and better at, and we need to practice them. I want to remind you, though, this is not nirvana. This is not a Pollyanna thing. This is real life. The world doesn't change, all right? But what does change, if you practice those strategies we talked about, our experience, our relationship with the world, vis-a-vis anxiety and challenge, negativity, our experience and relationship with that world, that part of it, can and does change, because we don't allow ourselves to be pulled into the vortex of it and completely discombobulated. All right. Life is going to keep handling you, me, and everybody else challenges and opportunities. And instead of listening to the fear, the dread, the anxiety, whatever moment is producing that anxiety, instead of listening and giving into that and like having a full meal of it, all right? Knowing what you value the most, That's why we talked last week about what are your largest, most important values about yourself, about community with others and how you're treated. All right. And with the vagaries of life. And I know one of mine is last guy standing wins. I'm Irish. What can I tell you? Last guy standing wins. Okay. And I will do everything in my power. Sometime I'm not terribly successful, but I'm a whole lot better than I would have been if I just went to the mat. All right. Every one of us, you, me, and every one of the 36 people here. All right. It's going to happen. But the more you practice those strategies and the more you can pull yourself into the safer zone where your energy isn't expended and wasted, and you remind yourself of what are your most important values, and they are going to happen no matter what. Okay. Knowing and reminding yourself and allowing yourself in the imperfect experiences, the way imperfect experiences, that you are and you are allowed to be a growing, learning, developing human being, no matter what age you are. All right. No matter what your disabilities, you are allowed to be a growing, learning, developing human being. And it's really important for us to focus when we feel the pressure, when we feel the negativity, focus on not allowing it to pull us in and swamp us. All right. Stay in the boat. Don't get pulled overboard. Just make your mind up to that. All right. Because negativity can become a habit. Like somehow, if we're negative all the time, we're protecting ourselves against the negative. That's not actually true. You're living in the swamp. All right. The swamp of negativity. And you lower your ability to resist because you accept the negativity. Now, accepting it as a fleeting experience that you're going to just keep your balance on, all right, that's one thing. But being always negative in order to avoid a negative, do you see the contradiction there? And you're also then living in an energy level that doesn't protect you. All right. It's like having a slow leak in a tire. It's not going to go flat right away. But what is going to fill you? It sure isn't going to be negativity. Now, I want to underscore that as we talked about last week, anxiety, and how many people found this? Probably fewer people right away. That anxiety can actually act as a warning notice. Do you ever just get that kind of a feeling? Yeah. That can be an alert. All right. And that alert, that warning notice can actually help us remain increasingly slightly more in control, at least enough that in that pause moment where we think, what? I don't know. I don't have a good feeling about this. That's the moment when if you just don't look at it and step into it and let it absorb you, overwhelm you, particularly if you're prone to anxiety. Okay. None of us is exempt from anxiety. Some people are more sensitive to it, just even neurologically. All right. Doesn't mean that you can't learn to see that warning note coming And in that moment, that's when you start to look for those strengths, the positives that we've been talking about. All right. You reach into your own resources, that backpack of life, and the very same positive strengths, approaches that were maybe unique to you, but you knew they worked well enough. That's the moment that you're giving yourself, all right, to keep yourself on the right side of the line and not get pulled into the fear and the dread and the whole hormonal bath. Your hormonal bath that we talk about all the time will be made up of very different ingredients if you can practice those strategies and remind yourself. It doesn't have to be perfect to be good enough, and good enough kept me from being completely overwhelmed and having to recover. All right. So the positives and the strengths are there. All right. You need the awareness. You need that slightly more neutral state of mind in order to have the consciousness to reach in. All right. And many, many things can be a positive to you. Sometimes they can be memories of people, of relationships you've had. I remember at that same really low period in my life, getting out of bed in the morning was like a brave act, frankly. I did it, all right, but boy, I'll tell you, it took a lot. And many mornings I went into the bathroom and I looked in the mirror and I said, "You're Ken Birchall's daughter and you can do this." And why did that work for me? It worked for me because when I saw myself in my father's eyes, he was military, but he was a lovely, kind, sensible military. All right. He wasn't the character actors that you see who are whatever. I looked in his eyes and I saw his faith and his belief in me. Okay. Now, I still had to do what I had to do to prove it to myself. All right. I'm Ken Birchall's daughter and I can do this. I can do it. I don't know how in heaven's name I'm going to do it, but I can do it. I'm going to do it one small step at a time. And I invite you to look back. There must be one person, all right, one person who, when you looked at them and they looked at you, you saw yourself reflected. Now, there could have been 100 others who were horrible people. You go for the one person, all right, and you see yourself as they saw you. They didn't do it for you. They didn't pamper you. They didn't baby you. But when you looked in their eyes, you saw their faith and their belief in you. All right. And when you look at the piles you have, and you're saying to yourself, like I did on a completely different issue, all right, doesn't matter. It's the same challenge. I have no idea how I'm going to do this, but I know I'm going to do it one cautious step at a time. And I'm going to get there. I don't know how long it's going to take me, but I'm going to get there. I want you to look at your piles and I want you to say the same thing to them and the same thing to yourself. Okay? The fact that, and be very careful at the same time, because whatever form the pain takes, all right, it's pain. We give an awful lot of credence to pain. All right. It's a very, very important concept in most of our cultures. Okay. However, perhaps that's because we have allowed that pain to completely disrupt us in the past. So we've given it the power it has. It's not like it doesn't have any power. It does, but it has the power we let it have. Because another alternative is, where are the answers? Who knows more about this than I do and can help me? And when I need help, I won't be too proud to ask for it. And I won't make it about I'm deficient or inadequate. Nobody knows everything. There is nothing as ignorant, in the true meaning of the word ignorant, as a specialist out of their field, as an expert out of their field. Nobody knows everything. Where is the person or the help or the support that you know you need right now? And you're not going to need that help forever, but you may need it to get over a hump. And if you do, you go get it. You do whatever you need to get that help. I did last week while we were floundering around with the bubble thing. All right. Sometimes life just sends you those moments, where you have to do that in order to keep you realizing that you're pretty much equal with everybody else. All right. No matter what you know. And there are things that you can do well and things that you don't do all that well. Oh, gee, you still get the help to do them, right? All right. So pain can be disruptive. Don't pay the full price. That anxiety, that first little whiff of anxiety, use that as a bellwether, a little alarm where you go, what do I need right now to avoid being pulled into this? That this gets bigger and more intense. What do I need? Where is it? How do I get enough of it to make enough of a difference? And then go get it. Right. So it's like I said last week, okay? Both anxiety and associated pain are not necessarily positive, but they are important because I want to invite you to consider that it's something that your relationship with it, your willingness or your not realizing that you have a vote here. All right. And because you have anxiety and pain, doesn't mean you're a failure. It isn't about failure. All right. Neither anxiety nor pain mean that you're weak. The fact that it can exact a price doesn't mean you're giving in. All right. It doesn't mean that that is bigger than you are. So don't let it overwhelm you to the point. Listen to it. Be aware it's there. It's like something you could trip over. All right. And yeah, you know what? It may make you feel a little bit disoriented. What do I need? Where is it? How do I get enough of it to make enough of a difference? And then do that. Okay. Those experiences can actually be, in retrospect, certainly not while you're living them in that moment. All right. But if you reflect on some of the things that have caused anxiety for you in the past, they can be an important opportunity that help you see and accept them without fighting. All right. When you look back on it, you have a different perspective. Rather than fight it, what you do, I would suggest, is you find a way to keep yourself steady while you ride the wave. So let it be that buzzer that you go, okay, no, what do I need right now? Where is it? how do I get enough of it to make enough of a difference with respect to whatever the thing is that is ahead of me, challenging me? All right. And sometimes it's if we've not done enough of this in the past, if we've gone to that modus operandi of it has to mean failure, I'm inadequate, I'm not, if we've gone there, or anybody has trained you to that kind of thinking, I invite you now to give yourself the choice to step back out of it. All right. And give yourself what you need at the first alarm. Find it. Because that helps us build the potential to develop the next strategy for the next event. It becomes an opportunity. Like, okay, this is not the first anxiety attack I've had or the first anxiety situation I've had. And I know there will be more in the future. Okay, I'd like to be ready for it. I'd like to be ready for it. All right. And so it's an opportunity. If you to reflect on your experiences, the onset, what sets things off? What are the common themes to the pain of self-judgment, harsh self-judgment, or the pain and fear of anxiety, like you're on ice and you're slipping and you're going down and you're going to be injured. All right. That's what it feels like, even when there's no ice or no physical jeopardy. Using that alarm bell, that first little, something's not quite right here. All right. And I don't want to go any further into it. Finding that and accepting that as a positive. It's sort of like a lighthouse in a storm. All right. The weather starts to go bad. You see the lighthouse. You know where the shore is. Let it be your lighthouse. That moment of awareness that what is ahead of you does not have to be a disabling trigger. Let that first awareness be your lighthouse. It can also be the start of looking for the supports you specifically need, being the unique individual that you are, especially if you have become susceptible to repeat situations. Rather than being distracted and sucked into the negative and the pain, how many people here want to experience, or maybe even you have, all right, that you believe in that moment, you're not filled with all consuming dread and, oh, here we go again. You actually want to believe that you're in a different mindset, all right, that it is possible. You don't know how you're going to do it, all right, but you know it's possible to find the pieces, to learn, and be able to just sit with it, the pain, the shakiness, sit with it while it passes, while you think of, what do I need? Where is it? How do I get enough of that to make enough of a difference? And then you act on it. Because if you just sit with it and let it flow through, just let it flow through while you stay as neutral as you can, all right? It will pass through. All right. How many people, to any degree, practiced that last week? How many people here believe, whether you did or you didn't, that events or situations that prompt anxiety in you, now this is not a Pollyanna statement, might possibly have positive aspects to them, and that there may actually be a realistic positive opportunity to seeing that bellwether, that first note of anxiety or pain, seeing it, especially if it's anxiety, because it's so amorphous, right? It consumes a person if you don't manage it, but it's just sort of vague and amorphous. It's hard to, it's like trying to grab the fog sometimes. But if you do believe that there's a positive to just that anxiety can be a very vivid reminder that what is present is not a good situation. So rather than fear the event, how are you going to handle it? How are you going to avoid it? All right. If this is a repeat, well, if it's happening, chances are whatever the situation that's prompting it is not a good situation. All right. And it can extend to even being a threat to your personal right to being treated with respect and compassion. And maybe if there is a repeat pattern, all right, maybe you shouldn't be allowing it to repeat itself. Is it in some way how you're treated or spoken to by someone? Is it a situation that enters your life in a practical way that overwhelms you and threatens you? Okay. Does it involve other people in your life or things you know you'd be really wise to learn how to do? One of those is me learning how to handle this printer. I swear it has a bug in it that's just I'm more motivated now. All right. Tiny aggravation, but sometimes these are things that the repeat ones, these are things that a long time ago we should have handled. We should have stopped it then. All right. But we went into defeat. We went into avoidance. Avoidance just means there's going to be another one. There's going to be probably a lot more of them. So, do you believe that you can learn how to do what is necessary for whatever the aspects that are causing anxiety in your life? Because learning how to handle those well enough, not perfectly, they'd move you forward in a direction that you probably would really appreciate and benefit from. And sometimes that's just about boundaries and limits. So, could there be a small part of anxiety that actually, in some cases, is that bellwether of what's to come? Right now, take a minute and think about one of the most memorable anxiety or fear-based things that happened that caused you anxiety, not threat. We're not talking about a kitchen fire or something. We're talking about something that's a little more amorphous. And do you see now that if you used a different strategy that is learnable, all right, you can in time do something differently. But it starts by allowing yourself to see something differently. And that do something differently would be just to let it float, relax, not entirely, but more than you have been, and let it flow through you. And while it's doing that, it has the possibility of teaching you the best direction for you to take in order to continue moving forward or away from something that is an element in your life that gets in the way, causes pain, causes anxiety. So rather than that first warning sign of anxiety being a bellwether, I'm going to ask you now. We're going to take a few minutes in a second to write down what those situations are. I'm going to ask you now to see if you're ready to make that negative anxiety, all right, be a wake-up call for you to make a decision about what may be causing the anxiety simply because it's long overdue. Haven't you had enough? And you actually do deserve something different and better. And what of your basic, strongest values do you hold dearest? Right? That would make it possible that some of the anxiety may be because you've been indecisive. You've made more of a habit of making decisions to appease other people. Or you've made other decisions that were not consistent with your values. And yet it was within your right and your capability. You would have to have made different decisions. But ducking and hiding just mean the next storm is still coming. It doesn't change anything to duck and hide. It does make a difference if you weatherproof yourself against whatever it is that are return patterns of anxiety. What are you saying to yourself? Is your anxiety about showing up and being more prominently observed in public? What are you saying to yourself? Here's a special alert to people pleasers, okay? Because you make decisions in haste, because you haven't made a conscious effort to stay awake and aware of something that was in some way predictable, all right? People have patterns of behavior of how they act and how they treat others. So in most cases, it's sooner or later predictable. It certainly is foreseeable if it's happened more than twice, all right? If you'd listened to the anticipatory anxiety as that situation or that person was approaching you, could you have repositioned yourself so that it cost you less? Could you have avoided the situation in a healthy way by setting a boundary, maybe? And is that boundary that you need to set so that you don't have to put up with the same nonsense over and over again? Maybe you're telling yourself it just isn't big enough or important enough. It certainly is if it's causing you internal anxiety and strife. If you're coming away feeling bad about yourself, whipped, exhausted rather than slightly energized and involved, um, interacting with people or situations, all right? Might not be. It might not be a person. It might be a service that you receive, and it's just inadequate, and it's aggravating, and it's frustrating, and it exhausts you. How about making a list right now, everybody, of 3 things or 3 people in your life currently where setting a boundary a long time ago was something you avoided? Because as long as you continue to do that, okay, you aren't even respecting your values or your needs. Why would the other person? And so the option of being ready or not present effectively means that you're actually avoiding anxiety. You're avoiding. We know that two negatives are a positive, right? You can influence avoiding anxiety by generating situations, by choosing to be available for yourself and aware of whatever information is trying to insert itself into your day to wake you up and to wake up that value within you that you're not paying attention to. That in this anxious situation is inconvenient. It isn't inconvenient. It's probably screaming at you. And wake up to your right to peace of mind about how and who you choose for companionship without judgment or comparison or ending up making you feel that somehow you're not enough. There's no reason for that. That's a form of tyranny, and abuse is an overused word, but you know what? You're colluding in the abuse if you don't set the boundary. So there's no reason, if you still have breath in your body, that you aren't enough. Maybe you want more, and that's okay, but maybe you're not listening to the anxiety that's trying to act as a reminder, giving you feelings of, here we are again. What's wrong with you? We didn't like it the last 3 times or the last 10 times. Is this your internal voice? What are you going to do about it? I can't do anything about it. I need you to act. And sometimes it's not a matter of black and white. Sometimes the decision isn't an easy one. Sometimes we have conflicting values. All right, that can happen. I want this, but I don't want to pay that for it, that price for it. Ask yourself, if you were to make any decision, those 3 things that I asked you to write down that are anxiety producing, if you were to make a decision maybe you've been putting off, or you've been working up the courage, you know it's right, but you just can't kind of find the way to do it, all right, without paying a price you don't want to pay. If you were to make that decision, take the risk and make that decision, how would you feel it 10 minutes after? How would you feel about it 10 minutes after? How would you feel about it? Because it would change 10 months later. You were to make that decision, you were to make that choice, you were to continue to make that choice. How would you feel about it 10 years from now? How? Do you see that the cost of making it, that initial friction perhaps within yourself and perhaps another person or whatever the other side is, might be unpleasant, but do you see that it doesn't last forever? And you, in 10 months and 10 years, if you continue to do it, are going to be really grateful you did. Because it's not going to cost you what it's costing you now and has cost you repeatedly. Are there people? Are there situations? Are there things about yourself, about others, about neutral parties you're not in a personal relationship with, but interacting with them is really aggravating? If you notice any feelings of regret, curiosity about, could that actually happen? Could I actually do, what would that look like? Anticipation. And anticipation, sometimes when you're making those kinds of changes, is a little bit shaky, okay? It can be a little nerve-wracking. Or feelings about anything else. Use the bubble tool we talked about last week, which, yes, I will get to you. This week has been like being on Mount Everest on ice. It's been a very, very crazy week. So I didn't get around to going into my email and pulling all of the email addresses and forming a contact list, but I will. You're all still in the email and I will pull that together. Hopefully, Hass was sick this week too. So hopefully with her assistance, we can get that done this week. Because that bubble tool and your commitment to yourself to handle aggravating, anxiety producing situations will help you see the bigger picture. Because right now, you can get stuck like this. It'll also help you to evaluate whether your values are integrated. Are they things you believe in, but you're afraid to kind of apply them? Or do you need to practice applying them for yourself and others? Or are you allowing anxiety to try and steal your peace of mind by the failure to do what you believe in? Know this, letting that happen, letting anxiety steal your peace of mind, will leave you feeling, will this never end? And life just feels like one long episode of repeat, repeat, repeat. It's your choice. What will it be? Will you try the strategies? What do you have to lose? Other than increasingly fewer and fewer anxious moments, I'm going to ask you to think about that challenge this week, and we will talk about it next week. Okay? You can do it. You come here every week. You can do it. That's it for today. I'll be thinking about you. I'm dying to fast forward to next week and get the feedback from people. Don't expect it to be easy. It won't be. Anything you start. Remember when you learned how to ride a bike? You probably didn't sail through the wind with your hair blowing or whatever right away, right? There were scraped knees and a lot of practice getting your balance. Practice it in small ways to build your confidence that this actually is the right path through and out the other end of what is invading your life in the form of anxiety. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next week.